The alien palace was built with towers of silver stone, glowing faintly under the twin moons. Inside the grand hall, silence broke into chaos. The king of Zelthar stood at the center, his sharp crown trembling on his head, his 4 golden eyes filled with fear. His daughter, Princess Liara, lay on a crystal bed, her skin pale, her breathing weak. The royal healers had tried everything, their glowing machines, their medicines, even ancient chants, but nothing worked. She is slipping away. One healer cried, panic in his voice. The king roared with anger and despair. You promised me my daughter would live. She is my only child. Without her, our throne is lost, nobles whispered from the shadows. Some felt pity, others only saw weakness. But all knew one truth, the princess was dying. Then a guard rushed into the chamber. Your Majesty, there is a human doctor nearby. The colony from Earth is only 2 systems away. They say their doctor is skilled in ways different from ours. The king's golden eyes narrowed. A human? His voice was sharp with disgust. Those fragile creatures of bone and soft skin? You would insult me with such a suggestion. But another voice rose, the queen, who had been silent until now. Her voice trembled with sorrow. Let us try. If the healers fail and the machines fail, then perhaps hope lies in something different. The king looked at his daughter, chest rising faintly, almost gone. His heart ached. Finally, he gave the order. Summon him. But know this, if he fails, his life will pay the price. Hours later, a small human ship landed outside the palace gates. Out stepped Dr. James Carter, a man in his 30s with tired eyes, a rugged face, and steady hands. He wore no armor, carried no weapons, only a simple black bag. The alien guards surrounded him with spears that glowed with energy. One of them sneered. You are the human who dares touch our princess? If she dies, your head will decorate our walls. Dr. Carter said nothing. His steps were calm, though his heart pounded. He had been told of the risks, but he had also been told of the chance to save a life. That was all that mattered to him. Inside the palace chamber, he saw her, the princess. She looked almost human, but her skin shimmered faintly blue, and her silver hair fell across her face like silk. Her breathing was shallow, her pulse fading. He opened his bag and began pulling out tools. The alien healers laughed bitterly. What are those? Metal knives, plastic tubes, useless toys of a primitive world. Dr. Carter ignored them. He placed his hand gently on the princess's neck, feeling her pulse. Weak. He listened to her chest, hearing the rattling sound of failing lungs. He whispered softly, more to himself than to anyone else. Not today. You're not leaving today. The king stepped closer, glaring down. If she dies, human, I will see your bones scattered to the stars. Dr. Carter nodded once. Then I'd better make sure she lives. He worked quickly. He cut into her side with his scalpel, drawing gasps of horror from the nobles. Blue blood trickled out, glowing faintly in the dim light. The alien healers hissed. He is butchering her. But the doctor's hands were steady, his eyes sharp. He inserted tubes, drained fluid from her lungs, cleaned an infection that the alien machines had not recognized. Sweat rolled down his face as he worked, the weight of alien eyes on his every move. Then her body jerked. The monitor nearby gave a long, sharp tone. Her heart had stopped. The chamber erupted in fury. Guards drew their weapons. Nobles shouted for his death. He has killed her. End him now. The king raised his arm, ready to give the command, but Dr. Carter shouted, Wait. I'm not done. His hands moved fast. He placed 2 pads of metal on her chest, connected to a small human defibrillator. He pressed the button. A shock of electricity surged through her body. Nothing. He pressed again. Still nothing. The guards took a step forward. The doctor's eyes burned with determination. Come on, fight. Don't give up on me. He pressed one final time, the shock ringing through her fragile frame. Then, suddenly, her chest rose. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing silver once more. A weak gasp escaped her lips. The hall went silent. The princess was alive. The king dropped to his knees beside her, tears burning his golden eyes. My daughter, Liara. His voice broke with relief. The nobles stared in disbelief. The alien healers bowed their heads in shame. None could deny the truth. A human with strange tools and stubborn courage had done what all their advanced science could not. Dr. Carter wiped his forehead, exhausted but calm. She will live, but she must rest. Her body is still weak. The king looked at him with a gaze that carried both awe and danger. Human, you have done the impossible. You have given me back my daughter. You may have saved more than a princess. You may have saved a kingdom. But even as relief filled the hall, shadows stirred among the nobles. Some whispered in anger, some whispered in fear, and others whispered in hatred, for the story was not over. It had only just begun. The palace chamber was filled with whispers. Some nobles still glared at the human, unwilling to accept what they had seen. Others looked at the princess with relief, their voices hushed with awe. But the air was heavy with tension. The human had saved her once, but her breathing was still shallow, her body weak. She was not out of danger. Dr. James Carter stood by her bed, his hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from exhaustion. He wiped sweat from his brow, but he refused to stop. He had seen this before back on Earth. Patients who seemed stable after revival, but whose condition could crash again without deeper treatment. She is alive. One noble hissed. But for how long? Her body is breaking. The human only delays her death. The king turned his golden eyes on the human. Then do what must be done. If her life fades again, so will yours. Dr. Carter nodded, his voice calm. Then I'll need more time. I'll need privacy. No interruptions. The guards stepped closer, their weapons glowing. Privacy? You dare make demands? But to everyone's surprise, the king raised his hand. Leave him be. If he is to save her, he must work without distraction. His tone was sharp, leaving no room for argument. The room cleared, though a handful of guards remained near the door, watching. The nobles filed out, their robes sweeping the floor, their whispers sharp with anger. Only the king and queen stayed behind, silent but tense. Dr. Carter opened his bag again. He pulled out a small lamp, shining white light onto her chest. He adjusted his gloves, his face serious. He spoke softly, almost like a promise to himself. All right, princess. You fought to come back. Now fight a little longer. Her chest rose and fell, weak but steady. He placed his stethoscope on her ribs, listening. The sound was wrong, fluid still rattled in her lungs. Infection spread faster than her body could fight. He would have to act, even if the aliens thought his methods barbaric. He carefully made a small incision, his scalpel gleaming under the light. Blue blood trickled out, glowing faintly like liquid stars. The queen gasped quietly, but the king held her hand. His golden eyes stayed fixed on the human. Dr. Carter worked quickly. He inserted a tube to drain her lungs, releasing the fluid that was drowning her from inside. The princess twitched, her body reacting, but she remained unconscious. He murmured to her, though she could not hear.
Easy now.
I've got you. Suddenly the door slammed open. 3 nobles stormed in, robes flowing, their faces twisted with rage. This is madness, one of them shouted. You allow this human to cut her open like an animal?
He butchers her body while we stand and watch?
Another raised his hand, pointing a clawed finger. King, you insult our people. This primitive doctor plays with knives while our sacred healers are pushed aside. The guards shifted uneasily, torn between the king's command and the noble's fury. Dr. Carter didn't even look up. His hands moved steadily, his focus locked on the princess. If you want her to die, keep shouting. If you want her to live, let me work. The boldness of his words shocked even the king. For a moment, silence fell. Then the king's voice thundered, echoing through the hall. Enough, leave us at once. This human is her only hope. If any of you interfere, I will strip your titles and your lives. The nobles froze, their anger replaced with fear. They turned and stormed out, their robes whipping behind them. The door slammed shut once more. The surgery continued. Dr. Carter stitched carefully, his hand steady despite the sweat dripping from his brow. He placed medicine from his bag into her veins, human antibiotics, strong enough to kill infections that alien healers could not even see. The queen finally whispered, breaking the silence. What is that you give her? Medicine, Carter answered, eyes never leaving his work. It fights the sickness inside her blood. Your machines didn't find it, but I could see the signs. If this works, her body will heal itself. The king studied him closely. You speak with such certainty. Are you never afraid? Dr. Carter paused only for a second, then whispered, Always. But fear doesn't matter when someone's life is in your hands. For a brief moment, the king's stern face softened. He saw something in this fragile human that he had not expected. Strength, not of muscle, but of spirit. Hours passed. The lamps burned low. The queen dozed in her chair while the king remained unblinking, watching every move. Dr. Carter's hands finally slowed. He leaned back, breathing hard. The princess's color was returning, faint but real. Her chest rose more evenly, no longer rattling with each breath. "She's stable," he said at last, his voice hoarse. "She's not healed yet. But she has a chance now. She just needs rest and time." The king exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and disbelief. He looked down at his daughter, brushing her silver hair gently from her face. Then he turned to the human. "You have done more than I ever thought possible," the king said. His voice was low, heavy with meaning. "But know this, the nobles will not forgive what you've done. To them you are a threat. They will not stop until you are gone." Dr. Carter looked at the king, his eyes calm, his face set with quiet determination. "Then I'll protect her as long as I'm here. Because saving her isn't just my duty, it's the right thing to do." The king's golden eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of respect in them now. For the first time, he saw not just a fragile human, but a man of courage. And somewhere in the shadows of the palace, voices whispered again. Not of doubt this time, but of danger, for the human doctor had saved the princess twice. And that was something many would not forgive. The palace was quiet that night, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the heavy silence of waiting, the kind that made every guard shift uneasily, every noble whisper in dark corners. Inside the royal chamber, Princess Liara slept on the crystal bed. Her breathing, once shallow and broken, had grown stronger. Her chest rose and fell with steady rhythm. Her blue skin carried faint warmth, and the glow of life had returned to her silver eyes, though they remained closed in deep rest. Dr. James Carter sat on a small stool beside her, shoulders heavy with fatigue. His tools lay neatly cleaned beside his bag. He had fought for hours, refusing to give up, and now the results were before him. She lived, truly lived. For the first time in days, the queen smiled. She sat close to her daughter, holding her hand gently. "Her pulse is steady," she whispered. "I can feel it. She is warm again." The king stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded, his golden eyes unblinking. He had not moved for hours, afraid that even the smallest shift might break the fragile miracle before him. Morning came. As light from the twin suns spilled into the chamber, the princess stirred. Her fingers twitched, her lips parted. Slowly, her silver eyes opened. The queen gasped, tears filling her eyes. "Liara, my child, can you hear me?" The princess blinked, weak but aware. Her voice was faint, no louder than a whisper. "Mother?" The queen sobbed with joy, pressing her forehead against her daughter's. Yes, it is I. You are safe." Even the king, who had held back his emotions, let out a breath that shook his chest. His eyes gleamed with relief, though he tried to hide it. He turned toward the human, his voice rough but soft. "She speaks. She lives. This is a miracle." Word spread quickly. Nobles gathered outside the chamber, pressing against the doors. Guards struggled to hold them back. They demanded to see the princess with their own eyes. "She lives," one cried. "Impossible, it cannot be," said another. "Not by human hands." A third spat, the doors opened, and the nobles flooded in. They froze when they saw her. Princess Liara awake, her eyes glowing faintly, her hand gripping her mother's fingers. Gasps filled the room. Some nobles fell silent, their anger drowned in shock. Others whispered darkly, their pride stung by the truth. One noble stepped forward, his robes dragging across the floor. His voice shook with disbelief. How can this be? Our machines, our healers, our sacred knowledge all failed. And yet this fragile human, with knives and crude tools, succeeds?" The king's voice thundered across the chamber. "Because courage is not measured by the sharpness of a blade or the brightness of a machine. This human dared when all others surrendered, but not all were convinced." Another noble snarled, "No, this is trickery. He has cursed her body with alien poison. She will die again, and when she does, her death will be on his hands." The queen rose, her silver gown flowing. Her eyes blazed with fury. "Silence. Look at her. She breathes, she speaks, she lives. Would you deny your own eyes?" The hall trembled with tension. Some nobles bowed their heads, ashamed. Others turned away, muttering in anger. The human doctor had changed everything, and they did not know whether to be grateful or afraid. Dr. Carter finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "She is not fully healed. Her body is weak. She needs rest, and she needs protection. If you truly care for her, let her recover in peace." The nobles glared, but none dared challenge him now. His words carried weight not because of his authority, but because of what he had done. The king stepped forward, placing a heavy hand on the doctor's shoulder. For the first time, the alien ruler's voice softened. Human, you have given me back my daughter. No reward could match what you have done. But know this, your actions have made enemies. Many will never accept you. Dr. Carter met his gaze. I didn't do it for them. I did it for her. He looked at the princess who, though weak, gave him the faintest smile. That night, the palace lit with celebration. Trumpets echoed through the towers and banners of silver and blue waved in the air. The people of Zelthar were told their princess lived. Joy spread through the city like fire and songs of hope rose from the streets. But inside the palace, shadows lingered. In a dark corridor, 3 nobles gathered, their voices sharp with venom. He has shamed us all, one hissed. A human in the palace, touching the royal bloodline, it is an insult, another growled. The third whispered, his voice cold. If the king will not remove him, then we will. The human must die. Meanwhile, in the princess's chamber, the queen sat beside her daughter, brushing her silver hair gently. The princess's weak voice broke the silence. Mother, who was he? The one who saved me? The queen looked at Dr. Carter, asleep in the chair beside the bed, his head resting on his arms. His face was worn with exhaustion but peaceful. He is a human, the queen said softly, and he is the reason you are still here. The princess's silver eyes lingered on him. A strange warmth filled her chest. Then, I owe him my life. The queen smiled faintly, though her heart was heavy with worry. She knew the truth. This human had changed the course of their kingdom, and change always came with danger. Outside, the king stood on his balcony staring at the twin moons. His mind was restless. The human had saved his daughter, yes, but he had also broken the pride of his people. The people will rejoice, he whispered to himself. But the nobles, they will plot. His golden eyes hardened. If they think they can take her from me again, they will learn the wrath of a king. And deep within the palace, the human doctor slept, unaware that his miracle had not only saved a life, it had started a war of loyalty and power that would decide the fate of 2 worlds. The throne hall of Zelthar had never been so crowded. From every corner of the kingdom, nobles, generals, and ministers gathered. Their silver robes shimmered. Their golden crowns reflected the light of the crystal torches. Whispers filled the air, heavy with curiosity and tension. At the center sat the king upon his high throne, his 4 golden eyes burning with authority. Beside him, the queen sat with calm dignity, her hand resting gently on her daughter's arm. Princess Liara was weak but alive, seated in a chair of silver stone. Though her body still trembled, her silver eyes glowed with quiet strength. And standing a little apart from them was Dr. James Carter, the human. His clothes were plain, his black bag at his side, his face tired but calm. Yet every noble eye was on him, some with awe, others with disgust. The king raised his hand. The whispers stopped instantly. His voice rang across the hall, deep and commanding. My people, today we stand upon a moment that will be remembered for generations. My daughter, Princess Liara, lay dying. Our healers, our machines, our wisdom all failed. But this man, this human, gave her life again. A wave of murmurs swept through the hall. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others clenched their fists in fury. The king continued, his voice sharper now. For such a gift, a reward must be given. But not gold, not jewels, not land could ever match the value of what has been returned to me. My daughter lives. My bloodline endures. For this, the human shall be honored in a way no outsider ever has. Dr. Carter shifted uneasily, unsure of what was coming. He had expected perhaps wealth, maybe safe passage home. But the king's words carried a weight far greater than treasure. The king rose to his feet, his robe sweeping across the floor. His eyes fixed on the doctor. I grant this man not riches, but family. From this day forth he shall be bound to my house. He shall become one with my bloodline. Gasps erupted through the hall. Nobles turned, their faces pale with shock. The king's voice thundered, I give him my daughter's hand. He shall be husband to the princess of Zelthar. The hall exploded into chaos. Nobles shouted, some with outrage, some with disbelief. This is madness, one cried. A human cannot sit beside our princess. Another roared. It is an insult to the throne. A third screamed. Guards had to raise their weapons to keep order. The queen's face remained calm, but her eyes betrayed her surprise. Princess Liara herself gasped, staring at her father in shock.
Father, what are you saying?
Her voice trembled. You would give me to a human? The king turned to her, his voice steady. Daughter, your life was saved by him. Without him, you would not sit here today. He has proven courage, skill, and loyalty greater than any noble who surrounds us. Who else is worthy of you? Liara's silver eyes flickered between her father and the human doctor. She could not deny the truth. This man had saved her life not once, but twice. But marriage? Her heart pounded with confusion. Dr. Carter felt every gaze burning into him. He had never expected this. He had saved her because it was his duty as a doctor, not because he wanted power or a throne. His voice was quiet but clear. Your Majesty, I never asked for this. I only wanted to save her life. The king's golden eyes hardened. And you did. Which is why this is not a request, it is my decree. You shall stand beside her. Those who oppose will oppose me. The nobles erupted again, but none dared challenge the king directly. Still, their whispers were sharp and venomous. This cannot be tolerated. A human prince? Never. We must stop this, or our kingdom will fall to shame. The queen leaned toward her husband, her voice low but firm. You risk everything giving her to him. The nobles will rise against you. But the king shook his head. Let them rise. Let them show their true faces. I will know who my enemies are. As the chamber settled into uneasy silence, Princess Liara rose slowly from her chair. Her legs trembled, but she stood tall, her silver hair shining under the torchlight. She turned to look at Dr. Carter, who met her gaze with quiet steadiness. She remembered the feel of his hand as he worked to save her, the calmness in his eyes when others panicked. He had not treated her as a fragile jewel, but as a life worth fighting for. Her lips parted, her voice soft but clear. If this is my father's will, then I shall obey. The hall shook with gasps. Some nobles fell silent, unable to speak. Others whispered furiously, their anger growing. Dr. Carter bowed his head slightly, though his mind swirled with doubts. He had not come to Zelthar seeking glory or marriage, but now he was bound by royal decree, caught between gratitude and fear. The king raised his hand once more. It is decided. From this day forward, Dr. James Carter is not merely a guest of Zelthar. He is of royal blood. He is family. The trumpets blared. Guards struck their spears against the floor in rhythm. The people in the city outside cheered when they heard the news, believing it a sign of unity between worlds. But within the noble houses, rage simmered like fire under stone. Plans were whispered, daggers sharpened, poison prepared. The king thought he had given the greatest honor, but he had also unleashed the greatest danger, for some would never accept a human as the princess's chosen. And for Dr. Carter, the real test had only just begun. The news spread across Zelthar like fire. By morning, every street echoed with voices shouting the same words. The princess will wed the human doctor. Some of the people rejoiced, seeing it as a sign of unity with the strange but courageous outsiders. If a human can save our princess, perhaps they can be trusted, they said. But others spat on the ground, furious. A fragile outsider as our future prince? It is an insult to our bloodline. The kingdom was split. Inside the palace, the tension was heavier than the stone walls. Dr. James Carter could feel it everywhere. Every glance from a guard, every whisper behind him, every glare from the nobles. Princess Liara sat with him in the royal garden. Flowers of crystal glowed around them, their light shimmering across the silver fountains. She was still weak, wrapped in a long gown that covered the scar across her ribs. For a long moment she said nothing. Then finally she spoke. Do you want this marriage, human? Carter looked at her carefully. Her silver eyes were sharp, though her voice trembled. He shook his head. I didn't come here for a crown, princess. I only came to save your life. Her lips pressed into a thin line. And yet my father has bound us. To him it is law. Yes, Carter said quietly. But to you it is choice. If you don't want this, she interrupted, her voice firmer. I obey my father always. Her gaze softened after a moment. But you are different. You looked at me not as a princess, but as a patient. You touched me without fear. That alone makes you dangerous to many. Her words unsettled him. Dangerous, not because of weapons, but because of what he represented. That night the conflict struck. Carter was walking down the marble corridor when he heard a faint sound. metal scraping stone. He turned and a shadow moved behind a pillar. Suddenly, a blade flashed. A noble assassin lunged at him, his dagger glowing with poison. Carter stumbled back, his doctor's bag clattering to the floor. He barely dodged as the blade sliced across his arm, burning his skin with searing pain. The assassin raised the dagger again, eyes full of hatred. "You do not belong here, human," the assassin hissed. "Your blood will stain these halls." Before the strike could fall, a voice rang out. "Stop!" Princess Liara stepped from the shadows, her guards rushing behind her. Her hand lifted, glowing with a faint silver aura of royal command. The assassin froze, forced to kneel by the power of her bloodline. Guards seized him, dragging him to the floor. The king himself arrived moments later, his golden eyes blazing. He looked at the assassin with fury. "One of my nobles dares attack under my roof?" The noble spat. "Better her dead than bound to a human." The king's roar shook the hall. "Take him away. His family will answer for this treachery." Later, in the princess's chamber, Carter sat as a healer cleaned his wound. The burn across his arm throbbed, but he said nothing. His eyes were on the princess, who sat across from him, her hands trembling. "You could have been killed," she whispered. He shrugged lightly, though his voice was steady. "I've been close before. It comes with the job." Her eyes widened. "The job of saving lives," he nodded. "Yes, on Earth, in war zones, in cities struck by disease, I've seen death come close. But it never stops me. Not when someone needs me." Liara looked at him with something new in her eyes, not just gratitude, but a quiet respect. "Perhaps that is why my father trusts you. You do not yield even when you should." But the attack had shaken the palace. That night, the king summoned Carter privately. "You see now," the king said, his voice grim, "they will not stop. My decision has made enemies powerful and desperate. They will strike again, not only at you, but at her." Carter met his gaze. "Then let them come. I won't abandon her." The king studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You speak like a warrior, yet you carry no weapon." "I have my hands," Carter replied. "And sometimes that's enough." The king's golden eyes softened, if only slightly. "Perhaps. But remember, human, you are no longer only a doctor. You are bound to my family. If she falls again, it will not only be her life at risk, it will be yours as well." Days passed, but whispers grew louder. In the market, citizens debated. In the halls, nobles plotted. In the gardens, the princess and Carter walked under heavy watch. One evening, as the sun set, Liara spoke again. Her voice was quiet, but her words sharp. "You risked your life again." "You didn't have to. Why?" Carter stopped walking, turning to her. "Because life is precious. Yours, mine, anyone's. If I can save it, I will. That's who I am." For the first time, Liara smiled, not out of duty, not out of politeness, but something real. It was faint, but it was enough. Yet in the noble houses, daggers were sharpened. Poison was brewed. Shadows moved in silence. The conflict was no longer just about the princess's survival. It was about the future of a kingdom, and whether a human could ever truly belong within it. And Dr. Carter, who had come only as a doctor, now stood at the center of a storm that could either unite two worlds or tear them apart. The palace had become both sanctuary and prison. Guards patrolled the halls in pairs, their glowing spears never lowered. Servants moved in silence, eyes lowered in fear of rumors that spread like fire. The assassination attempt had shaken the kingdom, and whispers grew bolder. The human must not stay. Dr. James Carter felt those whispers everywhere he walked. He was no longer seen only as the healer who saved the princess. To many, he was an intruder who disturbed the balance of power. But to one person, he was more than either. Princess Liara invited him to her private garden one evening. It was hidden within the palace walls, a place where crystal flowers glowed under the starlight, their petals shimmering like glass. A fountain sang softly, the water flowing in silver streams. She sat on a stone bench, her silver gown draped across the grass, her long hair falling loosely around her shoulders. For the first time, she looked less like a princess and more like a young woman carrying too many burdens. "Sit," she said quietly, gesturing beside her. Carter obeyed, settling onto the bench. The cool night air carried the scent of the glowing flowers. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Liara broke the silence. "Do you know why the nobles hate you so much?" Carter gave a faint, tired smile. "I've noticed they're not very friendly, but I figured it's because I'm an outsider." She shook her head, her silver eyes narrowing. "It is more than that. You broke their pride. Our healers failed, our machines failed, and then you, a human with nothing but simple tools, did the impossible. To them it is humiliation. And now my father has tied me to you. To them that is betrayal. Carter sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. So I didn't just save your life. I made enemies without even trying. Liara's lips curved faintly. You make it sound almost casual. But here pride is worth more than life. Some would rather see me dead than see you honored. Carter studied her face, the sorrow hidden behind her beauty. And what about you? How do you feel about all this? About me? Her gaze lingered on him, searching his eyes. Then she looked away, her voice softer. I was raised to obey. My life was never mine. Every step, every word, every breath, I belonged to the crown. When I was a child, I dreamed of seeing the stars, of choosing my own path. But a princess does not dream. She obeys. Her words hung heavy in the air. Carter felt something stir in his chest, not pity, but understanding. He knew what it meant to be trapped, not by chains, but by responsibility. He had seen soldiers forced into wars they didn't believe in, mothers trapped by sickness, children bound by hunger. You're not just a princess, he said softly. You're a person, and people deserve the right to choose their own lives. She looked at him again, startled by the simplicity of his words. No one in her world had ever said such a thing to her. For days after, they met in secret corners of the palace. At first, they spoke of small things, Earth's oceans, Zelthar's twin sons, stories of medicine and ancient battles. But slowly, their conversations grew deeper. Liara told him of the corruption within the noble houses, how greed for power had poisoned the kingdom for years. Some care nothing for the people, she said bitterly. They bow to my father only because they fear him. But their loyalty is to themselves. Carter listened, his mind sharp. On Earth, we've had the same. Kings, rulers, governments, all filled with men who cared more about power than people. But people always find a way to rise above them. She tilted her head, studying him. You believe in your people's strength? I believe in humanity's stubbornness, he replied with a small grin. We make mistakes, we fall. But we don't stop trying. That's what makes us strong. For the first time in many days, Liara laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. Perhaps that is why you saved me. You refused to stop trying. But outside their quiet moments, the storm grew. The nobles gathered in secret halls, whispering plans of rebellion. He must die. If the king protects him, then the king himself is weak. The throne belongs not to outsiders, but to us. Plots thickened like poison in the air. One night, Liara and Carter stood on the balcony, looking out at the twin moons. She leaned against the railing, her voice low. You risk more than you know by staying. You could still leave. My father would grant you a ship, safe passage home. Carter looked at her, his expression steady. And leave you here surrounded by people who want you dead? No, I didn't save you just to abandon you. Her heart tightened at his words. She turned away, hiding the warmth rising in her cheeks. You are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, he said with a faint smile. For a moment, the world seemed still, the stars above, the glowing gardens below, and the quiet bond between them. But their peace was fragile. That very night, a messenger arrived breathless, his face pale. He bowed before the king and queen. My lords, a gathering has begun in the noble district. They speak openly of rebellion. They plan to strike before the next moonrise. The king's golden eyes burned with fury. Then let them come. They will learn the strength of my crown. But in the shadows, Carter knew this was no longer just about the princess or himself. This was about the survival of an entire kingdom. And as Liara's silver eyes met his, both of them understood. Their connection was no longer just personal. It was the only hope they had to stand against the storm that was about to break. The night sky above Zelthar burned with tension. 2 moons shone coldly, but beneath their light, the noble district stirred like a hive of anger. Fires flickered in hidden courtyards. Armored carriages rolled quietly across stone streets. Nobles whispered oaths of betrayal, their voices sharp with venom. The human must die. The princess must not belong to him. If the king will not protect our bloodline, then the throne must fall. The rebellion was no longer secret. It had begun. Inside the palace, the king stood in his war chamber, maps glowing under crystal lamps. His golden eyes flashed as reports poured in from loyal scouts. They gather in hundreds. Their blades are sharpened. They will come for the palace before dawn. The queen stood beside him, calm but pale. They will come not just for us, but for Liara and the human. At the corner of the chamber, Dr. James Carter listened. He had no sword, no armor, only his steady hands. But he knew tonight was not about medicine. Tonight was about survival. Princess Liara entered, her silver hair flowing, her gown replaced with armor of shimmering crystal. She looked every bit a warrior, though her hands trembled. "Father," she said, her voice steady despite her fear, "let me stand with you. This is my fight as much as yours." The king shook his head. "You are heir to the throne. If you fall, our bloodline ends." But Liara's gaze flickered to Carter. "And if I hide, then our people will see weakness. Let me fight, not just for myself, but for the kingdom." For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Finally, the king nodded. "Very well. But know this. Tonight you must choose not only loyalty to me, but to the bond I declared. The nobles will demand you renounce him." His eyes burned into hers. "Will you?" The rebellion came at midnight. The palace gates shook as nobles' soldiers slammed against them. Cries of war echoed through the night. The air filled with the glow of energy spears, the clash of steel, the roar of fire. Inside the throne hall, the king sat tall upon his seat, his crown gleaming. Liara stood beside him, Carter at her other side. Guards formed a line, but the nobles burst through with fury in their eyes. One stepped forward, cloaked in black and silver. His voice thundered. "King of Zelthar, your rule is broken. You shame us with this human. Surrender him, surrender your throne, or we will take both." The hall trembled with shouts of agreement. Weapons gleamed. The king's golden eyes narrowed. "You speak of shame, yet you betray your crown. Tonight your loyalty shall be tested. Choose the throne or treason." The nobles turned to Princess Liara. Their leader pointed at her with a clawed hand. "Princess, you are the jewel of Zelthar. Cast away the human. Renounce your father's madness, and we will spare your kingdom. Choose us, and we will bow to you as our queen." The hall grew silent. Every eye turned to her. Even Carter's heart pounded, because he knew this moment was not his to answer. Liara's silver eyes flickered between the nobles, her father, and the human who had saved her life. The weight of her people pressed on her shoulders. She stepped forward. Her voice rang clear. "When I was dying, none of you came. None of you risked your pride. None of you fought for me, but he did. He fought with nothing but his hands. He gave me life when all of you had given up." Gasps rippled through the hall. She lifted her chin, her voice stronger now. "I will not renounce him. I will not betray the one who saved me. If that means standing against you, then so be it." The nobles roared in fury. Weapons lifted, but before they could strike, Carter stepped forward. He had no spear, no blade, only his voice. "Listen to yourselves. You claim to care for your kingdom, but you would tear it apart out of pride. You fear me because I am different, but difference saved your princess. Difference can save your people too." For a heartbeat, silence held. Some nobles faltered, doubt flashing in their eyes. Others hardened with rage. The king rose, his golden eyes blazing. "The choice is made. Those who stand with the throne stand now. Those who betray it will not live to see another dawn." The hall erupted in battle. Guards clashed with rebels. Sparks filled the air. The queen guided the wounded away while Liara fought beside her father, her crystal blade flashing. Carter pulled the injured to safety, his hands steady as ever. Even in the storm of war, he healed. When the dust settled, the rebellion lay broken. The loyal stood tall. The traitors lay in chains. The king, his crown still shining, looked to his daughter. She was bloodied but unbroken. Beside her stood Carter, exhausted yet alive. The king's voice thundered once more. Tonight loyalty was tested, and tonight it was proven, not by nobles, but by a human who had no reason to fight for us yet did. Let all remember this day. He is no outsider. He is Zelthar. In the quiet after battle, Liara approached Carter. Her silver eyes softened, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved me again. Not with a blade, not with power, but with your heart." Carter smiled faintly. "Guess I can't help it." "It's who I am." She touched his hand, her cheeks warming. "Then know this, I choose you. Not because of my father's decree. Not because of duty, but because you gave me life in more ways than one. And under the twin moons of Zelthar, their bond was sealed. Not just as healer and patient, not just as princess and human, but as two souls who had chosen each other in a galaxy that never expected it.